Okay, good morning. So yesterday we discussed the positions of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai regarding which of the two brachas come first, the Hagafen or the Kiddush bracha, right? And the Mishnaic text, the Tosefta, gave us the reasons, two for each. And then the Mishnaic text declared, halacha Beis Hillel, the halacha follows Hillel.
That was two distinct reasons.
Two distinct reasons.
One reason.
Rather than one reason divided into two. So the Gemara asked, why does the Mishnah need to declare that the halacha follows Hillel? There's already been decided in heaven. The Baskel, there was the divine voice that announced the halacha follows Hillel. So if so, why would the Mishnaic text of Tosefta need to declare that the halacha follows Hillel? And the Gemara gives two possible resolutions. Number one, perhaps this text is before the Baskel was announced, before it was publicly decided in heaven that we follow Hillel. The Mishnah had to tell us, hey guys, follow Hillel here. Even though some people might have been following Shammai and some Hillel. In this case, the Mishnah is saying, follow Hillel. Explanation one. And explanation two is, well, actually, this Mishnaic text is Rabbi Yeshua. And Rabbi Yeshua is of the view that we discard the statements from Baskel, from heavenly voices. Torah loy b'shamayim, that's what the Torah says. The Torah is not in heaven. And if it's not in heaven, then the fact that heaven declares the halacha to be one way is of no consequence in terms of the practical halacha. Because Torah itself says, I give it to men. We reviewed this story a bit yesterday. Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua were disputing, and Rabbi Lezer invokes a heavenly voice to declare in support of his position, to which Rabbi Yeshua says, thank you very much, but Torah is not in heaven. We follow that which is by Torah rule in this physical world, which is to follow the majority. And it's because Rabbi Yeshua is of the view that we do not take into consideration the statements from heaven, and therefore the heavenly decree which says to follow Hillel, in Rabbi Yeshua's view, is of no halachic consequence. Therefore, in his version of the Mishnaic text, Tosefta needs to say, hey guys, follow Hillel here. In that, you make the bracha Hagafen before you make Kiddush. Okay, so now let's look at the Tosfos. So, right, that's what we're going to look at. Who's going to give us a little better picture of this, right?
Yeah.
All right. In response to the question you asked, which is a good question. So Tosfos is on the left-hand column, right? Rashi always appears on the inner margin when you have Gemara open, the folio is open. Not in that book because that book got it wrong, just because the way the printing is. But when it's printed, usually the inner side of the folio is Rashi and the outer is Tosfos.
This would be here.
So the Tosfos would be on the other side, yes, because when we printed it, side A didn't show up at the front, side B showed up at the front. So therefore, the double-sided pages that you have are backwards. Where first the side B of the lower one, and then side A of the higher one, which it should be A and B on one folio. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, this would be A and B.
That's right, yes. But really, A and B should be back to back, right?
Right.
Anyway, exactly. Okay, so it's the left-hand side is the bottom line, and we're looking at the third Tosfos. Right, so you can see each Tosfos begins with a Dibur HaMasla, with a quotation from the relevant passage of the Gemara in bold, and this is the third one where it says the Omar Ein Mashgichin B'Baskel. See it?
This one here.
They're not so far out in the margin.
Here.
Yeah. No, that's the right hand side. 1 second.
I went on the other page.
Kufi Dalam with Aleph here.
Oh, okay.
We're 114a. So there. Okay, the Omar Ein Mashgichin B'Baskel. The Gemara had said that this Mishnaic text follows the view of Rabbi Yeshua, who is of the view that we don't take into consideration the heavenly proclamations in terms of deciding halacha, and therefore the fact that the heavenly voice told us to follow Hillel, in Rabbi Yeshua's view is of no consequence, and therefore this Mishnaic text has to inform you follow Hillel. Okay. Says Tosfos, V'im Tomar, lest you say, this is the way Tosfos invokes a question. Lest you say X, I might say B in response. That's how it's posed.
Because meaning like
There's a humility
may
to it.
come to the wrong conclusion.
That's right.
Had we not inserted this.
The little commentary. Yeah, so it's there's a humility here in that I'm not declaring like this is the way to understand. Look, you might think this, so maybe we can say back this. So there's a humility in that. Not always is that the language. Some others would say vakasha, or sometimes even Tosfos himself will say vakasha, meaning it's difficult. Okay, v'im tomar. So lest you say, ma'ishna, what is the distinction? The kaimalan that we follow kebaskal the base Hillel. Why is it that the heavenly voice that declares that we follow Hillel, that we do follow? V'loy kaimalan, and we do not follow kebaskal der Belezer, the heavenly voice that declared in favor of Rabbi Levi. We all follow Hillel, thanks to the Gemara recording the story that the heavenly voice announced to follow Hillel. But yet, in the dispute between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua, when the heavenly voice declared in favor of Rabbi Lezer, we don't follow there. Why is that? So we might suggest, says Tosfos in response, in this instance of Hillel and Shammai, Beis Hillel Havaruba. Beis Hillel actually was the majority. Ella, only that, the Beis Shammai machadeditve. Beis Shammai were sharper learners, sharper minds. So the principle of following the majority was upheld in the declaration of heaven to follow Hillel.
Because
the majority was Hillel, because the Torah, which says that the Torah is not in heaven, and therefore says to follow the majority, even if heaven has a different opinion, because Torah is on this world. So that is true by Hillel as well. Hillel is the majority. They were the majority, the house of Hillel. It's only that Shammai had a sharper mind, they were smarter, better depth of learning, and therefore people maybe felt inclined to follow them, or maybe followers of Beis Shammai had a hard time acquiescing to Hillel because they were sharper. So the voice of heaven had to say, hey guys, we have to follow Hillel. Now, ironically, the Gemara tells us why heaven told us to follow Hillel. And the Gemara gives two reasons why heaven announced to follow Hillel. Not because the majority, which is interesting. It's just saying that the majority. But the Gemara gives two other reasons. A, because Noichin Va'aluvin, they were more pleasant people. They were nicer people. Which is interesting. And B, because they would learn the view of Shammai before they learn their own view. Okay, which begs the question on Tosfos. If the reason why we're following Hillel is because they're the majority, that's what Tosfos just told us, so why is the Gemara giving us other reasons? The Gemara should say that heaven announced to follow Hillel because they're the majority. Right? Tosfos' view, that's what's happening here, right? Tosfos is saying, why are we following the voice from heaven that tells us to follow Hillel?
Well, we said before.
It's because they're the majority.
There would be people who would be inclined to follow the more sharper mind.
Right, but at the end, that's true.
That's true. I mean,
but the end, the real reason why heaven declares to follow Hillel is because they're the majority. That's what Tosfos is saying here. Otherwise, there's no halachic basis for it. Otherwise, there's no halachic basis to follow the heavenly voice. So therefore, we must say, to your point, that when the Gemara gives those reasons, it's not the reason to follow Hillel. It's only the reasons given to persuade those who aren't following Hillel.
right.
Meaning, to persuade those who aren't following Hillel, we're telling them, guys, it's true that Hillel is smarter. But at the end, that's not what's most important.
And it's true that Hillel is the majority.
But you obviously don't care about that anyway, the fact that Hillel is the majority, because you're going with smarter. So I'm telling you, number one, being smart is not the most important thing. What's more important is to be a good person. And being a good person connects you to Hashem and His will more than being smart. That's number one. Number two, the second thing that connects you to Hashem and His will more than being smart is being honest and humble. Learn the other person's view before your own. So the Gemara's reasoning for why the heavenly voice declares in favor of Hillel, according to Tosfos, is not the end reason why. It's not the halachic reason for why we follow Hillel, because the halachic reason to follow Hillel is they're the majority.
It's already there.
The halachic reason was already there. The Gemara's reasoning for why the heaven declares in favor of Hillel is actually to respond to those who think that being smart is the way to follow, the way to go.
And that's why Rabbi Yeshua says that you should follow Hillel.
And therefore,
in the Mishnah.
Okay, let's see about Yeshua in a minute.
Right?
Let's see how Tosfos says to follow Rabbi. Well, let's see how Tosfos says about Yeshua yet. But you're going in the right direction. Let's see. Okay, but what comes out is a beautiful thing here. The halacha is you follow the majority. Finished. There are those who have the mistake of thinking that you know how you get to the truth of what Hashem wants by being smart. To which the heavenly voice says, no.
Smart is not enough.
The way you get to what Hashem wants is number one, by being a good person, and B, by being a humble person. Noichin Ba'aluvin, that's what the Gemara said, they were more pleasant people. And B, they would learn the other person's view before their own. They would learn Shammai's view before their own. And that's a response to the mistake of thinking that smarter is what counts.
Because by studying the other side's view first, shows a level of humility.
Correct.
And willing
It's
to try to
truth-seeking.
understand, open-mindedness, to
Correct.
understand the other
Correct.
point of view.
That's right. Being smart can often have the trappings of, I want to demonstrate my intelligence.
Yeah.
Whereas learning Torah has to come along with has to be founded on the attitude of, I want to discover what Hashem says, not my intelligence. What's the truth? And because Hillel was after that, even though they weren't as smart, that's why we follow. That's the response to the Baskal's defense
Objective.
in teaching these people who are not following Shammai. Although at the end of the day, the halachic reason to follow Hillel is Tosfos telling us is because they were the majority. Okay, so continues Tosfos. Aval Hassam, but in that case, the case of Eliezer and Yeshua, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines into the Tosfos. Hassam over there, in that case, the Baskal, the heavenly voice that declared in favor of Rabbi Eliezer, Hayekneged Rabbim, was against the majority. As the Gemara there describes, the majority of the opinion followed Rabbi Yeshua. And therefore, because it was against the majority, that's the kind of heavenly voice we discard. Therefore, Loi Kai Malan Hachi, we do not follow that view because it's a minority view. It's just Rabbi Eliezer, even though the heavenly voice declared in his favor. Ubaskal and the heavenly voice, La Yatsa, was only emerged only for his honor, to defend Rabbi Eliezer's honor, but not because it has any halachic weight. Like the Gemara says there, Rabbi Eliezer says there, Rabbi Eliezer says, heaven, they're going to prove me right. So heaven came to his defense. In other words, heaven, in declaring a halacha, is not telling you to follow halacha. Halacha must be decided on this earth. In other words, let's put it this way. Heaven knows that the halacha is follow the majority on earth. So why is heaven even making a public statement? Well, 2 reasons. In the case of Hillel and Shammai, the heavenly voice is coming to talk to those who are following Shammai and saying, hey guys, you got to come this way. And you're thinking that they're smart, not good enough. In the case of Eliezer and Yeshua, the heavenly voice is also not even telling you to follow Eliezer, because it can't. The majority is the other way. It's only coming to defend the position of Eliezer and give him his honor. He's being put down by everybody, and heaven's saying, Eliezer's position is good. Not that you should follow us, because as the Gemara story concludes there, that heaven actually was, Hashem says, I was smiling and saying, my children, you outsmarted me. In other words, heaven itself understands you're supposed to follow the majority. But nonetheless, the Baskal, the heavenly voice, is emerging to give Eliezer his honor. But not because you have to actually follow him, because the majority was against Eliezer. Okay, so now the question is, Rabbi Yeshua. This was all of Tosfos' discussion so far is, to us, the followers of halacha, why is it by the Hillel case we do follow the heavenly voice, and by the Eliezer case we don't? Answer, because in the Hillel case, the majority was with Hillel, the heavenly voice was only to talk to the Shammai people, and in Eliezer's case, he was in the minority, and the heavenly voice is only there to defend his honor. Okay, now the question becomes, where does Rabbi Yeshua stand in all of this? Now, im taimar, lest you question, im kain, if so, heichi kam Rabbi Yeshua, why would the Gemara tell us that this Mishnah, which tells us to follow Hillel, is following Rabbi Yeshua? Why is the Gemara telling us that? Rabbi Yeshua koya baskal de when Rabbi Yeshua said not to follow the heavenly voice, which heavenly voice was he referring to? He was referring to the heavenly voice that defended Ibn who is in the minority. Why is that relevant to the heavenly voice here concerning Hillel, which is the majority? The Gemara is making a comparison. The Gemara is saying, this Mishnah text, you know why it's telling you to follow Hillel? Because Rabbi Yeshua is speaking here. And Rabbi Yeshua is of the view you don't care about heavenly voices. Hold on a second. The heavenly voice we don't care about is only when there's a minority. But in the case of where there's a majority, we do care about the heavenly voices. Because it's defending the majority. So how is it helpful to tell us here that the reason why the Mishnah declares halacha as Rabbi Lezer is because we're following the view of Rabbi Yeshua who discards heavenly voice? Rabbi Yeshua only discards heavenly voice when there's no majority. In this case, there's a majority. So how is it helpful to tell us that this is Rabbi Yeshua speaking here? The first answer, which says that this Mishnah is speaking before declaration of heavenly voice, okay, because tons of people are following Shammai. But Rabbi Yeshua, post heavenly voice, should seemingly accept this heavenly voice that we follow Hillel because there's a majority. And the fact that he discards it by the Belezer case, well, that's because the Belezer is the minority. And therefore, there's no use in this instance to tell us that you know why the Mishnah says to follow Rabbi Hillel because it follows Yeshua, who discards Baskal. Yeshua only discards Baskal when there's a minority and when it's in favor of a minority.
Because they were defending.
Because they're defending Belezer's honor. But in the case of Hillel, Yeshua should also agree with the heavenly voice. So it says the Gemara, it says that Tosfos v'Yeshleimer might suggest, Midika Omar ein mashkinchem babaskal mishum deloy min hashamayim he. From the fact that Rabbi Yeshua says, you don't follow the majority.
Don't follow the majority.
You don't follow the heavenly voice.
Why?
Why? Because we only follow the majority. Mashma, the implication is, in all instances, we completely have zero relevance to the heavenly voice. In other words, Tosfos is saying, even the people of Shammai should have ignored the heavenly voice that spoke to them. Because in Rabbi Yeshua's view, you never are concerned with heavenly voice. Rabbi Yeshua says, Rabbi Yeshua didn't just say, hey guys, this heavenly voice is not good enough because
It's a minority view.
It's a minority view. What he says is, we don't listen to heavenly voices because Torah is not in heaven. So majority, minority, Torah is not in heaven. So even the followers of Shammai should have completely discarded the heavenly voice that came to him in Rabbi Yeshua's view, even though it happens to be minority here, majority there. We, the listeners of halacha, we follow a heavenly voice when it conforms to majority, as it does with Hillel, in responding to those who might want to say that being smarter is better. But in Rabbi Yeshua's view, which says Torah is not in heaven, so if you think smarter is better, heavenly voice isn't going to change your mind. And therefore, Rabbi Yeshua has to declare, hey, the halacha here follows Hillel. In the case of the Kiddush. Because the fact that heavenly voice sided with Hillel is of zero consequence in Rabbi Yeshua's view.
But he still sides with Hillel.
He still sides with Hillel, but not because of the heavenly voice.
So in other words, he concurs, but he doesn't
Concur with the reason.
Join the heavenly voice. He concurs with him.
Correct. He concurs with Hillel
for different reasons.
For a completely different reason. Not because in his view, Torah is not in heaven, period. Correct. Torah is not in heaven, period. Okay. So this is Tosfos. I'm still not 100% settled with this. I'm still not 100% settled with this Tosfos, because if the fact remains that Hillel is the majority, why isn't that Rabbi Yeshua's reason to follow Hillel universally?
Say that again, sorry.
My question now on Tosfos is, if Hillel isn't, Tosfos is adding a historical fact, basically. He's adding this historical fact that the Hillel was the majority. If that's the case, why isn't that good enough for Rabbi Yeshua to follow Hillel universally? Why is this case being singled out? The fact that Tosfos settles the fact that he ignores Baskel, that he ignores heavenly voices. That we understand because in Yeshua's view, he's an extremist. Torah doesn't exist in heaven, period. Whether they exist, but it's not relevant. Okay, but if the historical fact is, as Tosfos declared earlier, that Hillel is the majority, then why isn't that good enough for Yeshua? Unless you have to go case by case basis. Are they the majority? Are they not the majority?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, exactly. You have to go case by case basis.
Where they're not the majority.
Although it seems from Tosfos,
they're kinder and this and that.
But it seems from Tosfos that universally they're the majority, because in Tosfos' view, the only reason we follow the heavenly voice is because they're the majority.
There's cases in the Gemara.
Unless Tosfos is saying that that majority and more intelligent actually has equal weight, and it's the heavenly voice that tips the scale in favor of majority. Whereas Rabbi Yeshua discards heavenly voice, it's back to equal weight. Unless that's the way we understand Tosfos. Right? Maybe. And that somehow intelligence equals equivalent to majority.
The Bach call came down to refute that because the Bach call
Correct.
was already
So therefore
answering an issue which was already the majority.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't have come down to express that. Everybody knew that.
But according to Tosfos, it would seem that according to Tosfos, intelligence and majority is equal, and Baskel weighs it on one side, with the arguments that the Baskel brings. Whereas in Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, Baskel is not relevant, so it remains equal. Maybe, which is difficult to understand. It's a massive chiddush to say that, because who's to decide who's the more intelligent one in any given scenario? Right? There are cases where the halacha follows. Anyway, I don't open this can of worms, but
what you're saying is because there are cases where Shammai is the halacha.
In a few instances, yes.
Very few.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so maybe case by case basis. But again,
in that case, intelligence does, for lack of a better word, intelligence.
Either that, or because either that, or members of the House of Hillel said, you know what, in this place I agree with Shammai.
Or they deferred, and then they came aboard.
Correct. Sway the majority the other way.
Swayed over.
Yeah.
As a majority.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing. I'm just going to end with this. I actually think that this whole discussion, this Tosfos, and specifically the Gemara about the Torah's not in heaven, you have to follow the majority, I think it actually has a lot to do with whether you can make halachic rulings based on AI. Why do I say that? Because let's say AI had perfect intelligence. Okay, right now it's not, but let's just say hypothetically it has perfect intelligence.
Right, it can scan all of Gemara.
All of Gemara, all of Jewish response and literature throughout all of history.
Perfect.
An answer.
Perfect rationalization.
Let's just say it could get perfect. Let's just imagine it could get perfect. The problem here is, well, what's wrong with that? I'm getting to the best answer.
Torah's not about.
Is Torah about the best answer? And that's why I think it comes down to these Tosfos and to that discussion about Torah's not in heaven. It's not about best answer. And here's how it's proven. If you were to ask 4 or 5 different AI models the same question, would it give you the same answer?
Wait, say it again?
If you were to ask 4 or 5 AI models the same question, would it give you the same answer? The same halachic answer? Okay, so you have, to me, mimonashaft. Whichever way you go, you have a problem. If AI is giving you the same answer each time, right, then the halachic principle of follow the majority has been rendered obsolete. And clearly it's baked into the cake of Torah that you need to have, and you need to have a majority.
There is no majority. It's one answer.
That's right. It's no majority. There's only one answer. If Torah itself says follow the majority, means Torah itself says there must be more than one view on each halacha question and follow the majority. And if AI has perfect intelligence and gives you the exact same answer each time, it means it's missing the essential element of Torah, which is there could be more than one answer. If, on the other hand, each AI gives you a different answer, then what do? Majority of AIs? I can keep on adding AIs ad infinitum. I can keep on adding new models. So when do I ever say I have the maxed out AI answers and now take the majority of the AIs? In other words, this notion that Torah says you're not in heaven, you're on earth, is not just a question of heaven versus earth, and then you can make the argument that AI is on earth. It's a question of humans. Torah is baked into the system of Torah that humans can have more than one view of the answer, and in so doing, you have to come to the answer. You have to come to the majority. If AI does not come to more than one view, then you're missing that point because Torah has to have more than one view. And if AI does come to more than one view, then where's the majority? Which is why
I don't understand that part.
if you ask 10 AI models, right?
There is a majority.
If you ask 10 AI models, right? If you ask 10 AI models, and they each give you a different answer because Torah has more than one view, right? Okay, so what do? Follow the majority of the AIs? They give me an hour, I'll write a new code and get a new AI model. He'll give you a new answer and sway the majority the other way.
Then it's not the computer; it's the person writing the code.
Okay. So then I have to do the viewing, right? But if we're talking about a perfect AI that has a perfect intelligence,
if it's left to its own device and starts to learn on its
own and develops,
okay.
Exactly. So when do you ever say that you take the, like, in other words, how can you halachically apply the principle follow the majority to AI? Very big stretch. Conversely, if AI only has one view, then it's missing the inherent element of Torah that Torah has more than one perspective for every halachic question. But if it doesn't come to the same exact view, and it does have multiple views, can you apply the principle of majority to AIs?
I think it has. That's true. But I also
There's my contention. And I understand.
Halacha is no. I'm
right. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. But what's the proof that halacha has to have a human element? And the fact that Torah says follow the majority. It means Torah itself says that there has to be multiple views of Torah, considering the human element. And considering such, Torah says follow the majority of human positions, which means you have to have that in the system of Torah. If not, it isn't Torah.
100%.
Even if it's perfect intelligence. And I really believe that in the future, as we develop, sages are going to use AI. But AI will not be the decider. AI will spit out an answer, and the rabbi's going to have to read it and decide whether he agrees with it or not. And perhaps to some degree, I already use AI. When I look to research, I'm asking computers, right? But I still have to take the information the computer's given me and make a decision according to my knowledge and understanding. So that certainly will be the case where rabbis will be using AI a lot in the future, but I don't think that AI will be allowed to use as a halachic decisive.
That's very insightful.
And I think it's come down to this story and how we understand this story of this Tosfos here, of the story of the Gemara saying, the Baskal saying that we ignore Shammai even though they're smarter, and the fact that Torah says we're not in heaven, we're down here on earth, we have to follow the majority. Certainly heaven has a perfect intelligence, and yet we're not following it, right? Because Torah itself says there must be more than one view, and you have to come to a majority. And does that notion, more than one view and come to majority, apply to AI? Very big stretch in my view. Okay. So I think there's going to be an interesting conversation as the years develop about understanding AI's interplay with halakha.
Those years are increasingly approaching fast.
Oh, very fast. Within a decade.
Exponentially fast.
Within a decade.
Every year, it's like 5 years.
Within a decade, absolutely, or less. Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow, God willing, we'll get to. So we already did Kaddish. We're going to get to Orkatz and Karpas coming up in the next Mishnah. We're going to make our way through the Seder.
We're going to get there.
We are going to get there. Okay, have a good day, Eden.